generally, the more we embrace who we are, the more we win.
Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations. We're going to continue our conversation with our friend Vic and his podcast, New Rust Pittsburgh. Well, people are who they say they are. And that's what I try to get across to people. People are who they say they are. It's like in the 12-step world. You're a member of the 12-step world when you say you are. So what we try to see is people who run political campaigns on a fear basis, something that is going to be taken away from you, or something that you're not going to get what you truly deserve. So first of all, we talked about migrants, and then we talked about brown people, and then we talked about trans people, and then we talked about gay people, and now we're talking about communists. So, you've heard the French philosopher who said first they came for the trade unionists. I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Catholics. Then they came for the Jews. And then they came for the minorities. And then they came for me. And when I cried for help, there was no one left to help me.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you form a sense of community where you feel safe and structured? Everyone needs a sense of community, Vic.
I would say that the more that you reach out to other people, the more you'll get back. I spend a lot of my time just going over to friends' houses and dropping something off or picking something up or writing down notes of what a particular person likes and looking for events in the community and just trying to connect with people as much as I can. And I think that the more that you create spaces for other people, the more you're welcomed into other people's spaces. So I host parties pretty frequently. I try to introduce people to other people who might have similar interests. And I have friends who have approached me and said, "Oh, I really like your friend. Is it okay if I'm friends with them too?" Or like they've formed a stronger friendship together that I have with them. And like, that's great. We're all connected. We can get together, and just wanting to bring people together helps you connect with other people and helps build more community for yourself.
So how do you deal with people who have these minds of uncertainty or contempt prior to investigation? And it's really through a matter of ignorance. And ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is just lack of knowledge.
Yeah. I try to approach it from a place of neutral inquiry before anything else.
I like that term.
Yeah. Because if you first just ask questions, well, have you heard about trans people? And often you can then address it from that perspective. Because if you don't know what someone's heard, if you don't know what someone's been exposed to, it can be very difficult to address it. So, for instance, I've had conversations where people have mentioned videos they've seen online of trans women crashing out. You see these videos that are intentionally meant to demean trans people, where they show a trans woman getting very upset in public for the way that she's being treated. And I try to pull that back and say, okay, well, how would you feel if you went through your life being rejected and being told there was something wrong with you from everyone around? If anytime you went into public spaces, you felt like you had to be guarded because you presented in this way that other people were aggressive in response to, because that's the reality for a lot of trans women. If they look a certain way, then they are treated very negatively in public. And it can be very painful for some people. It's not the first time that happened to her. That video where you're seeing someone get very upset with the way they're treated, that is probably the 100th time. And it was probably very hard for her to go out that day and interact with the world. And I even today know a lot of trans people who won't go out in public or are very guarded about where they go out. There are a lot of places where I don't particularly feel safe, or things that I feel I need to do when I'm traveling. I have a camo jacket, and I go into my dude mode when I feel like I need to use the bathroom at a rural gas station. So,
well, we have we have two good friends at the show who recently had on again who transplanted themselves from Texas here because of the discrimination.
yeah, it's very common. It's very common. There are mass migrations of trans people happening out of the country to different areas of the country. I actually just last year worked with Councilmember Barb Warwick to pass an ordinance in the city to protect our local LGBTQ population, which was one of the reasons that I started this podcast, because I came to Barb Warwick and I said, I'm really scared about what I'm seeing in Project 2025, some of the threats that they're making to criminalize gender presentation. And I think that we need to do something to ensure that that type of legislation at a federal level, if it's passed, isn't enforced in the city. And Councilmember Warwick said, yes, absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. And a couple of months later, she put forward the ordinance. I spoke to city council about it, and I said, if you pass this ordinance, I will stay in the city and do everything I can to make Pittsburgh prosperous and welcoming to all. And that was a testament, because I was seeing people in the trans community of Pittsburgh flee the country. And that really pained me, because I care so much about the community of Pittsburgh as a whole and the queer community here. We deserve to be here, and we love this city. And so everything that I'm doing now, bringing people together to embrace the city and to talk about Pittsburgh and what it's like here today, is all stemming from that.
I like the way I like your focus. I like the way you think. I like your sense of community and your point of resistance. So a number of years ago, we went up to Boston and we did a number of things. We checked out Paul Revere's grave and a lot of things. And passing through there, we passed through Philadelphia, Declaration of Independence. So what we did, Vic, is we did a podcast on asking people to declare their own Declaration of Independence and what they were declaring their independence from. So what we'd like to do is have people declare the Declaration of Independence from ignorance and bigotry. So what do you have to say? And this is something that we fight against this on this show, not fight against, but we try to shine a light of truth on it, about Christian nationalists who view people who aren't exactly the way they are as some type of a demon spawn.
Yeah, I have heard that, and I think about that pretty often. I like to say that the quote, killed by the woke mind virus, lives rent-free in my brain, because it's just so hilarious. And the whole notion that trans people have demons in them, on one side, like, that's kind of fun, right? Like, if you don't believe in demons like I do, then it kind of seems punk rock. But that being said, people who genuinely think that I have a demon in me for who I am, I feel like if they walked in my shoes, if they saw me playing with my goddaughter, if they saw me picking up a friend from the airport, if they saw me having a conversation over drinks with my colleagues in the tech industry, I don't think they would think that. They would see that I am the kind of person that is overflowing with empathy and love, and just a person trying to get by, trying to be the best person I can be. And I would say, even though I don't personally consider myself a Christian, I live by the principles of Jesus Christ far more than quite a lot of Christian nationalists. And I try to ask myself every single day of my life, what am I doing for other people, and how can I be a good person? I obsess over how to be a good person every day of my life. And I don't think that many Christians are asking themselves that and leading through the example of Jesus Christ the way that I think I do.
Well, in the 12-step world, our basic philosophy is do the next right thing. And it's our purpose to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to the divine and to our fellows. And that's the way we do things. Personally, according to faith, I am a Quaker. I'm a liberal Quaker. I'm with a Buddhist philosophy. And although I am not a Christian, I follow what Jesus said and did absolutely, because most of the things that I hear out of people's mouths that they use religion as a shield for their hate is all from the Old Testament. None of these people say Jesus said this. So Mike and I, the producer of this program, we were talking earlier about something that we wanted to put on our podcast. And this person says that Jesus was a peaceful, radically nonviolent revolutionary who wasn't American, never spoke English, who hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks, never sought tax cuts for rich Nazarenes, was anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer too, never asked lepers for a copay, never called poor people lazy, never even slightly anti-gay, never mentioned abortion, supported paying taxes, and was a long-haired, community organizing, authority questioning, anti-slut shaming, brown-skinned Palestinian, unarmed, harmless Jew, but only if you believe what's actually in the Bible.
Sounds like my kind of guy. Yeah, I would definitely get down with that. I'd have a glass of wine with him. Yeah, I think ultimately, if you look at what the Bible says and you look at what Jesus said, I know that there are Bibles that specifically call out the red text. I would call on any Christian to focus on that far more than what they might be hearing at the pulpit. And reflect on the way that they live their lives, and don't worry that much about what other people do. And try to live with genuine kindness every single day, and recognize that if what they care about is the good of mankind, then they should approach every relationship with kindness. And if they think that I have a demon in me, probably the best way to help me is to be as kind as possible and to offer the trans community help and kindness.
Well, a number of years ago, we did a podcast and we called it Jesus is Socialist. And what we did is we defined socialism, we defined communism, we defined capitalism. And what we told people out there, to contrary to popular belief, your friend Jesus is an evangelical person who you use as a shield of hate, even though you never use his words, was the architect of socialism and the king of woke. Yeah, it boggles people's mind, and we get some. Mike shields me from the really vicious type of attacks that we get on this program.
Really?
Yes.
I'm shocked to hear that, because every episode I've listened to has just been so wholesome, and it's been really great to hear people's individual stories, and it helps you feel less alone in the world, to hear the struggles that other people have faced. And the whole notion of fishing without bait, I constantly feel that every single day of my life. I don't know where I'm headed. I try. I make a plan, and then I make a new plan. But it hasn't gone as according to plan.
Well, we try to help people live a life without definitive expectations. As Vic in the 12-step world, here's what we say, that serenity is inversely proportional to expectations. The higher your expectations, the lower your serenity. The lower your expectations, the higher your serenity. So what we do is we walk through life. There's a Zen saying, Vic, that the wise move through life like a bee gathering honey, not disturbing the flower.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's what we try to do. And we try to carry a message and try to help people gain an understanding of each other. We don't argue with anybody. You know, I'm a huge 12-step guy, and I've told this to countless people. They're probably weary of it. But contrary to popular belief, Vic, 12-step recovery is not about alcohol. It's not about gambling. That was the second 12-step group form. And then drugs and the others. It's about having a change in your thoughts and a change in your actions. The first step is the only one that mentions any type of addiction, and everyone's in recovery from something. It's all about acceptance. The first 3 steps are commitment steps. It's about you committing and developing some type of a relationship with a power greater than yourself. Steps 4 through 9 are action steps, when you actually have to do an inventory, recognize your past, alpha your character defects, make a list of all persons you harm, making amends to whenever people such ever possible, and then step 10, 11, and 12 are maintenance steps where you maintain recovery. Like step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to increase our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Definitely. And I think that helps give someone more autonomy in themselves as well, to really look at who they are as a person and be their genuine self by embracing every aspect of themselves. I think so many of us in this life are perfectionists by nature, and that is such a painful place to be. And I think it can be very healing to let yourself have flaws, recognize those flaws, embrace those flaws, make amends to the people you've harmed through them, and then reconstruct yourself through them. So I think that is a very healing process.
Well, 12-step recovery is about, I'm really on the 12-step kick tonight, but 12-step recovery is about a design for living. It's a lifestyle. It's a discipline. It's not joining the Elks Club. Okay? We live this every day in our life. Just the same as you do, you try to walk through your life trying to do the next right thing. That's what I keep hearing from you. I know this podcast started out about trying to promote your podcast about Pittsburgh, but boy, it sure went into some other direction.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And we're a Gay
And His Enby.
Are you a reality television connoisseur?
Do you like it discussed from an LGBTQ lens?
If so, A Gay and His Enby is the podcast for you.
Hear us break down all your favorite guilty pleasure reality shows from Bravo, Drag Race, and just about everything in between.
Listen to A Gay and His Enby on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, Jim Ellermeyer from Fishing Without Bait, the behavioral health therapist who helps people explode into their lives through full impact mindfulness. As most of you know, I'm in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, and one of my favorite things to do is have motivational talks at rehabs and various places where I can be of use. Now, contrary to popular belief, 12-step recovery is not about drugs, alcohol, gambling, or the 100 other groups that use 12-step behavioral change techniques. It's about having a change in your thoughts and a change in your actions. If you're interested in having a motivational speaker with interactive audience participation, we would be glad to provide that. The message that can interest people has to have depth and weight. And if you'd care to discuss that with us, if you'd care to discuss that with me, we'd be glad to show you and give you some information and tell you maybe some videos about our behavioral change techniques and how we incorporate that into our talk. You can find out more information from fishingwithoutbait.com.
Well, I wanted to just have a conversation with you. I love your podcast, and ultimately I think that our podcasts are parallel in certain ways, in that I'm trying to tell the stories of individuals, but through the lens of Pittsburgh, through the lens of the city that we love.
So when you're talking about loving the city of Pittsburgh, I was looking at your website, and it's well done. And you talked about all these bridges, the 90 communities that make up Pittsburgh, the melting pot that is Pittsburgh. So what are some of the stories? What is something that you want to portray about people who maybe have lived here all their lives and don't know anything about it?
Well, I think that the world has a very outdated notion of what Pittsburgh is as a city. One thing that Mayor O'Connor said early on in his administration was that he sees himself as Pittsburgh's biggest cheerleader. And I saw that and I thought, I want that to be my job. That sounds like a really fun job. I think he needs some competition for it. And I think I want to show every little piece of it. So I've been interviewing eldritch crochet artists and stained glass artists and entrepreneurs and talking about my friend's speakeasy, just all these different corners that you can head to and explore, but told through the individual stories. So I would say, if you are someone who has maybe stayed in your own little corner of Pittsburgh, you may not know about everything happening. You may not know that we've got this great undercurrent of people doing weird, cool stuff. If you are ready to embrace the Pittsburgh weird, that's what this podcast is about.
Well, we could certainly introduce you to a number of people who have explored many. One of our good friends is Chris Whitlatch, who wrote a book about the unknown Pittsburgh, about the speakeasies and the...
I've read it.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Chris is a great guy. We'd certainly introduce you to him. I think all of us could certainly collaborate on moving forward and trying to create some type of vehicle or platform on which we all commonly agree in which we could support each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there is this notion of Pittsburgh being a dilapidated steel town. And then there are all of these entrepreneurial communities and artist communities and people in their own little corner. There's Proto Haven, which is a maker space where you can go and people will teach you how to use laser machines to make your own sign or 3D print things, and all these different communities that are ready to welcome you in, and people might not even know that they're there.
So what you're doing is creating all these resources that make people, what we try to do is help people, give people opportunities, help them have an open beginner's mind and look for opportunities in life, and every day get up and look for opportunities and make memories. So what are some of your memories about Pittsburgh, Vic?
My memories about Pittsburgh. Well, I remember on July 4th hanging out in the north side waiting for the fireworks, playing the ukulele because I got there hours before sundown to get a good spot, and having a few other dudes come along with guitars and just sitting there and jamming with strangers waiting for the fireworks show. I remember going house hunting with Ellie and Bob, who are family members of mine. Totally other story there. Ellie is my extra parent, technically my ex-stepmother, who recently retired in Pittsburgh, now lives 10 minutes away from me. But I remember going house hunting with her and introducing her to Pittsburgh.
Ah.
And now she's settled in and she loves the city and is starting to make friends of her own. I remember when I first went to the Andy Warhol Museum and I got to see some artists they were showcasing and talking to them about the legacy of Andy Warhol and what that means to the queer community in Pittsburgh. And I remember meeting my best friends in the world and making vegan barbecue with them in the middle of the pandemic because we were all cutting out meat at the time. Yeah, just a lot of stories, a lot of memories. One of my favorite things to do in Pittsburgh is ride my bike around the city.
Ah.
And the Smithfield Bridge lit up at night is one of the most beautiful places to be in the world.
Yeah, going up on Grandview Avenue over Mount Washington, viewing the city at night. Some of the eating establishments. I'm a breakfast connoisseur, my friends and I, and we have a number of places that we highly recommend. Kelly O's is down at the 24th and Smallman. They have one of the absolutely best breakfasts ever. Their famous breakfast, I highly recommend it. Pamela's up in Mount Lebanon. Go up there frequently. A J&J's Family Restaurant up on Shiloh Street up in Mount Washington. Wonderful place. And it's a place you don't need to travel that far to explore and really enjoy yourself.
Definitely. The city has so much to offer, and I don't think people fully realize how accessible all of it is. Growing up in New York, it was a much larger city, but I couldn't afford anything. I couldn't afford it. And the rent prices were so high that you didn't get people opening up small local businesses. And we have so many great local restaurants. We have so many cool little shops you can hang out at. Boheme in Lawrenceville, that is a collection of 25 small businesses. You can go in there and give your money towards 25 different small businesses and makers and artists and whatnot. So there's a lot here and a lot to connect with, and people can afford to do it because the cost of living here is lower than a lot of the country.
Well, sometimes there's a misapprehension about Pittsburgh. They think it's this huge city. Sometimes people who live outside of the city and they want to come and see me, make an appointment, and I tell them where I'm at, they view Pittsburgh as this impenetrable labyrinth when it's not that big, Vic.
It's really not. People call it the biggest, smallest town in Pennsylvania. And it has that vibe for me. I think it feels very small to me as someone who grew up in New York City, most definitely. And I go back, and the minute you go to Union Square during rush hour in New York City, Pittsburgh seems like the most rural spot in the world. Until recently, I was working a remote job with a lot of people in LA and New York City, and I would get on my video camera and go sit on my porch, which is in the middle of Pittsburgh, and get told, "Oh, you live in suburbia." I do not live in suburbia. I live 10 minutes away from downtown Pittsburgh. By no means suburbia, but I think it really just depends on the way you look at it. If you're used to living out in the middle of nowhere, Pittsburgh does seem like a big city. If you grew up in one of the biggest cities in the world, Pittsburgh seems quaint in certain ways.
Well, for people who have grown up in Pittsburgh, a lot of them believe it's the center of the universe, and nothing of any significance happens outside of the city limits.
I kind of agree with them. Yeah, I kind of agree with them. Different perspective, but I have so much more going on here living in Pittsburgh than I ever did when I lived in New York, because there are people to connect with. There are things to do.
Well, maybe I'm a alarmist, a precautionist, but sometimes when people bring their children, their loved ones, partners in to see me, and maybe they've just come out, they've got into the gay community, they're considering transitioning. I usually tell them for a while, stay in the city limits.
Yeah, I do feel a lot more comfortable in the city limits than sometimes when you go out of the city. I am hopeful that that will shift, but I can understand the fear. And I think generally, the more we embrace who we are, the more we win. And that doesn't mean don't be safe. That doesn't mean don't take precautions. That doesn't mean don't read the room and understand if you're capable of reading a room. But there's always risks in life. And is it a greater risk to not live as your genuine self, or is it a greater risk to lessen yourself for the comfort of others?
I don't want anybody to have a mind of fear. What I want them to have is a mind of awareness, not a mind of fear.
Definitely.
A mind of awareness.
Definitely. Yeah. And ultimately, there are people in the world who want to do harm. And that's true regardless of who you are. And some people are more vulnerable to harm than others. But it doesn't mean that other people get to dictate the way we live our lives and what spaces we occupy.
It just amazes me that in order to make some people feel good, somebody else has to give them someone that they feel that they can look down on.
It's a very sad thing. And I think it comes from a lot of insecurity and not feeling like you can be genuinely in yourself. And I can see how it might be very frustrating and painful for someone who won't let themselves explore themselves and be genuine in themselves if they see other people doing that.
How do you explain to people who believe because they're white, they won something, like they were so special that they were born white, they were chosen to be born white? It's an accident of birth. I've
Yeah.
tried to explain that to people.
Yeah, I think they won in that, unfortunately, our ancestors did a lot of really terrible things to get us to a place where we have power over others because of the color of our skin. That is not a blessing from God. That is something to acknowledge. I am very grateful for the privileges that I experience being white, and it's my responsibility to acknowledge that I have ancestors who did some horrible things because of that. I did a DNA test and discovered that I have lineage dating back to early settlers of New York.
Mm.
And I'm proud of that heritage. I think it's great that my family has been part of New York City for a very long time, but I also recognize that that probably means that one of my ancestors did something absolutely abhorrent to a Native American, that my ancestor probably did something absolutely terrible to an early black slave, an early African slave in New Amsterdam. And that's something that I need to reckon with as a person. And it's resulted in a certain amount of privilege in my life that I experience. And I can acknowledge that and try to connect with people who have not had that experience and understand the perspectives of Black people in my community.
Well, one of the things when I usually meet someone, I ask them, I say, what's good about being you? What's good about being you, Vic?
I'm cute.
I like
I'm
that.
cute as hell. And I didn't think that before I transitioned. But yeah, I'm cute as hell. I think I'm pretty smart and pretty well spoken. I try to be a good person every day of my life. And I know a lot of people don't put that work in, and it is exhausting sometimes, but I try. I like to learn. I get frustrated with myself because I pull myself in a million different directions, try to learn a million different things, but it means that I have learned a lot in that time and I've explored a lot. And every single day of my life, I want to experience something new and I want to make the most out of every single moment of my life. And I think that is a good way to live.
I like the confidence in your voice. I like that confidence. So usually when I ask people those questions, what good about being, no one has ever asked them that before. So usually what I'll tell them is I'll say, do you know the difference between right and wrong? Do you have a moral compass? Can you be dependable? Are you honest? And do you treat people with courtesy and respect? I said, those are the 5 greatest attributes that a human being can have. And that's really all I need to know about you.
Yeah. And I think that is not a fixed state, but something that we strive towards and something that we fight for every single day of our lives. I spend a lot of time ruminating on whether I'm a good person, but I think it really just depends on the actions every single day. And before you act, reflecting back on the decisions that you make and try to manifest what you want the world to be every single day of your life.
It's the choices that you make. That's why I have these tattoos.
Definitely.
I choose. So what I talk to people, Vic, about is a human bill of rights. The right to be understood. The right to be heard, because most people are not being heard. The right to be respected. The right to be treated as an equal. The right to be given the benefit of the doubt and the freedom to decide. And quite often what I'll suggest, Vic, is that if somebody isn't giving you these things, what are they doing in your life? We often suggest to people to plant flowers and pull weeds. So how many flowers are you planting in your life, buddy?
I'm working on it. I have been on a journey over the last 3 years or so in my life to cultivate relationships with the people who feed me and cut out the relationships with the people who harm me. And that's been a journey as someone who struggles a lot with people pleasing, as someone who tends to give and not let myself take. But I think I'm getting there a little bit day by day. I think people tell you who they are with their actions, and it's good to give people leeway. It's good to give people opportunity, but there's a certain point at which you need to look at things clean faced and say, what is going to be best for me and what is going to be best for this person? And if a relationship is a toxic one, it's going to be best in the long run for both of you if you move on.
Yes. So you have a powerful message to carry to others, not just simply the message about opening up Pittsburgh, unexplored Pittsburgh, some things that don't know about it, some curiosities, some oddities, and some wonders of the city. You have a powerful message to carry to others in other ways also, Vic. I'm very impressed. I'm not a person who's easily impressed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I am impressed.
Ultimately, what I'm trying to do is create a love letter to Pittsburgh and touch on every little corner of it and embrace it and love it and bring us all together for our love of this city.
I think that would be an apt title to this podcast tonight. Would be a love letter, Vic's love letter to Pittsburgh.
I love
love
that.
letter to the city. So at the end of every podcast, Vic, what we do is we offer a free prescription. Fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. If we're all not God's children, and none of us are. Please be good to yourself every single day. Namaste, my friends. and a free prescription at the end of every podcast that you can cash anywhere. Fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. And this is a shameless plug for a new podcast from our new friend Vic, newrustpodcast.com, a new podcast that we generally encourage you to listen to. Continue our podcast next week as we continue our conversation with our friend Vic. And as always, do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friends.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.